Welcome, friend. You're here now, at the quiet edge of the day, where the noise finally softens, and nothing asks anything of you for a little while. You made it through another long stretch of living, and you don't need to be anywhere else. Let the room be just as it is. Let the darkness be gentle around you, like an old blanket waiting on a familiar bed. You don't have to straighten anything out tonight. You don't have to solve or fix or figure anything out. Feel your jaw loosening a little, as if the day is slipping out of it. Let your shoulders fall with their own weight. Slow and honest. Your hands can unclench now, resting in the shape they naturally prefer. Your breath softens on its own, without effort, without direction. Even the small muscles around your eyes begin to grow heavy, like tired petals closing at dusk. Maybe you've been carrying work on your back all day. Maybe you've walked around with a mind that wouldn't settle. Or maybe it's family, money, responsibilities, all the things that tug at you, even after the sun is down. Tonight, imagine placing those things by the door, the way you'd set down a pair of worn shoes. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet release. Let the weight you've been holding slip to the floor. Let the door of this day close softly behind you. Feel the dust of your thoughts settling. Slow as a jar set gently on a counter. Feel the lights of the mind dimming, room by room. Some of you came here carrying the kind of tired that doesn't show on the outside. Some of you may be holding a question that's followed you for years. Someone listening might have whispered to themselves before bed, "I just want a moment of ease." I've heard this many evenings, in different ways, from different hearts. Here, in this shared quiet, you're not alone. We rest together, the way lanterns glow softly beside one another, each with its own small flame. Nothing to prove, nothing to chase, just the simple kindness of being human for a while. Let a little space open inside you, like a door left slightly ajar to the night air. Let whatever you no longer need drift out. Let whatever is gentle drift in. This is how the body remembers its own calm slowly, naturally, like water finding level. There's no doctrine here, no rules to follow, only the soft truth that everything passes, every tightness loosens, every moment gives way to another, like leaves letting go when autumn leans in. The mind can loosen too, not by force, but by the quiet willingness to stop gripping. If any part of your day felt heavy, let it rest beside you. If any part of your heart feels tender, let it be tender. Nothing needs to be pushed away. Nothing needs to be held too tightly. And before we sink deeper into the night together, if this quiet space helps you rest, you're welcome to subscribe only if it supports you. And if you feel like leaving a comment later, just a simple one, if it eased you, or two if it didn't, that's enough. Now, settle a little more. Let the stillness gather around you. And when you're ready, we'll begin the first story. Story 01. The Buddha was sitting beneath the shade of a broad sal tree. Late afternoon light settling on the earth like warm dust. A young householder approached, shoulders tight, eyes tired from too many nights worrying about work and money. His voice trembled as he spoke of bills, expectations, the endless pressure to keep everything together. The Buddha listened quietly, the way a calm lake receives rain. He told the man that holding worry too tightly was like gripping a burning ember, thinking it would light the way. The man breathed out, realizing how tightly he'd been squeezing his life. Slowly, his face softened, and the tightness in his chest eased. You might know that feeling, the weight that follows you into bed, the sense that if you stop worrying, something will fall apart. But sometimes, loosening your grip helps more than tightening it. A simple truth: you don't have to carry every burden at once. Try this: place a hand over your chest, breathe once, and silently say, "For this moment, I set it down." Story 02. One morning, the Buddha walked through a quiet village lane. A farmer hurried to him, breathless, explaining how he lost his oxen, how his fields were failing, how his family argued every night from stress. His voice shook from exhaustion and fear. The Buddha gently explained that everyone carries problems, just different kinds, and no one lives without challenges. The farmer paused, surprised, realizing he wasn't singled out by misfortune. Something in him loosened, as if a knot inside finally unwound. Maybe you've felt that, the sense that everything is happening to you, piling up faster than you can handle. But you're not alone in this human struggle. A simple truth: problems are part of living, not signs of failure. Try this list: one thing causing pressure, then whisper, "This too is part of life, and I will meet it one step at a time." Story 03. The Buddha sat with a group of monks near a small river. One monk, known for his temper, approached with clenched fists and a trembling jaw. Ashamed, after shouting at another monk during chores, the Buddha pointed to the river's muddy water. Stirred by a passing animal, he said that anger is like that mud: it clouds everything. But if left still, it settles on its own. The monk let out a slow breath, realizing he didn't have to fight the anger, only give it room to settle. Maybe you've had days where a sharp word slips out at home or work, and regret hangs over you afterward. It happens to good people, people who care. A simple truth: when the mind settles, clarity returns. Try this when irritation rises. Step away for one slow breath, letting the mud in your mind settle before you speak. Story 04. On a warm evening, the Buddha walked to a quiet grove. A woman approached, carrying grief like a heavy cloak. Her child had been sick for months, and she felt helpless, terrified of loss. The Buddha listened, offering the story of a village where every household had faced loss. He didn't deny her pain, he simply showed her she wasn't alone on this path. Her shoulders dropped, and she felt her breath deepen for the first time in days. If you've ever stayed awake worrying about someone you love, you understand her heart. Love brings tenderness, and tenderness sometimes hurts. A simple truth: every heart knows both love and loss. Try this: place your hand on your heart and say, "May I be gentle with myself tonight." Story 05. The Buddha sat under a mango tree when a merchant arrived, overwhelmed by envy toward a wealthier rival. He'd been losing sleep, comparing everything he had to others. The Buddha spoke of a traveler who tired himself by staring at another's path, missing the one beneath his own feet. The merchant blinked, realizing how much time and peace he'd lost chasing someone else's life. Maybe you've felt that tug, seeing someone online or at work succeeding and wondering why you're behind. It's a human ache, not a flaw. A simple truth: comparing steals the joy of your own path. Try this: name one thing in your life you're grateful for, however small. Story 06. One morning, a monk approached the Buddha with his head bowed. He felt useless, doubting his abilities, worried he wasn't progressing fast enough. The Buddha pointed to a slow-growing tree nearby and explained that some trees bear fruit quickly, while others take longer. Yet both have value. The monk breathed easier, feeling hope return. Maybe you've judged yourself harshly too, thinking you're behind in your career, your finances, your goals. It's a heavy burden to carry. A simple truth: growth takes the time it takes. Try this recall, one thing you've improved at in the last year, no matter how small. Story: 7 inches, a moonlit clearing. The Buddha sat quietly as a hunter approached, shaking from guilt. He had spoken harshly to his child earlier that day, overwhelmed by stress and regret. The Buddha reminded him that even a crooked tree can offer shade. Mistakes don't erase goodness. The hunter felt warmth return to his chest, realizing he could begin again. Maybe you've replayed words you wish you hadn't said. It can sting for hours, even days. But you're not defined by your worst moments. A simple truth: kindness can begin again at any moment. Try this. Think of one gentle action you can do tomorrow, just one. Story 08. A wealthy householder came to the Buddha, anxious about losing everything he'd built. His fortunes were uncertain, and fear followed him everywhere. The Buddha spoke of a person trying to hold water tightly in their hands. The harder they squeezed, the more they lost. The man nodded slowly, realizing how fear had been draining him. Maybe you felt uncertainty about income, bills, or the future. That tightness in the chest, that restless mind. A simple truth: letting go of fear's grip makes space for steadiness. Try this. Breathe once and relax your shoulders as if releasing a tight rope. Story 09. A monk confessed to the Buddha that he was drowning in regret over past mistakes. The regret felt like chains, keeping him from resting or focusing. The Buddha described a traveler refusing to put down a heavy pack, even when offered a place to rest. The monk realized he could loosen his hold on the past, even if he couldn't change it. If you've ever replayed old moments late at night, you understand the weight he carried. A simple truth: the past can be acknowledged without being held. Try this whisper: that moment is over, and feel the breath that follows. Story 10. One afternoon, the Buddha met a young man frantic with indecision. He had 2 paths before him and feared choosing wrong. Overwhelmed by the pressure to be perfect, the Buddha pointed to the road ahead and explained that no path guarantees ease, but walking with steadiness brings peace wherever you go. The young man sighed, relieved to know he didn't need perfect certainty to begin. Maybe you've stood at a crossroads too: job choices, relationship decisions, financial steps. It can pull your mind in every direction. A simple truth: clarity grows from moving, not from waiting in fear. Try this. Write one small step you can take tomorrow, and let that be enough for now. Story 11. The Buddha was resting near the bamboo grove when a monk approached with a trembling voice. He felt overwhelmed by restlessness, his mind jumping from task to task, worrying about chores, duties, and all the things left undone. The Buddha picked up a small bowl and filled it with water. He gently stirred it, showing how a shaken mind reflects nothing clearly. Then he set it down, letting the ripples fade on their own. The monk watched the surface still itself, feeling his breath settle with it. A quiet ease came over him. Maybe you've had those days, jumping from one notification to another, mind buzzing like a swarm you can't quiet. A simple truth: stillness returns when you stop stirring the mind. Try this. Close your eyes for one slow moment and imagine the water inside you calming. bit by bit. Story, 12 inches, a quiet clearing. The Buddha met a father exhausted from raising 3 children. He worried constantly about their future education, health, money, and felt guilty for not doing enough. The Buddha listened and pointed to a young sapling growing beside an older tree. Each grew at its own pace, shaped by wind, rain, and time. The father's shoulders lowered as he realized he didn't have to control every outcome for his children. You might know this feeling, wanting everything to be safe and certain for the people you love. It can feel like carrying a whole household on your back. A simple truth guidance helps. Control exhausts. Try this. Think of one thing you can allow to unfold naturally, without managing every part. Story 13. A wealthy merchant visited the Buddha. Troubled by the anxiety that came with success, he feared losing what he had: the business, the reputation, the comfort. The Buddha spoke of a traveler crossing a river on a raft. Once on the far shore, clinging to the raft only weighed him down. The merchant felt something loosen in his chest. He realized he had been gripping possessions and status long after they had served their purpose. Maybe your worries show up like that too: the fear of loss, the urge to hold too tightly. A simple truth: what you cling to becomes what burdens you. Try this. Unclench your hands for a moment. Palms open, breathing gently. Story 14. One morning at Jetavana, a monk confessed to the Buddha that he was eaten by jealousy. Another monk was praised for his discipline, and it stung like a quiet wound. The Buddha pointed to 2 candles burning nearby. Each gave light, and neither took from the other. The jealous monk felt warmth rise in his face, not from shame but from understanding. His breath steadied. You may know that feeling when someone else's success makes your own efforts feel small. A simple truth: another's brightness does not dim your own. Try this. Think of one person you envy and wish them one silent moment of well-being. Story 15. A distressed woman came to the Buddha with worry lines carved deep into her brow. Her husband had lost work, and money was tight. Nights were long and full of fear. The Buddha told her about a traveler who kept checking the sky for storms instead of taking the next step on the road. The traveler exhausted himself without moving forward. The woman breathed deeply, realizing she had been bracing for disaster instead of doing what she could. Moment by moment. Maybe you've felt that tension too, waiting for something to go wrong before it even happens. A simple truth: the next step matters more than the storm you imagine. Try this. Name one small, helpful thing you can do tomorrow, and let the rest wait. Story 16. A monk approached the Buddha with a heavy heart. He struggled with laziness, unable to finish tasks, buried under guilt for falling behind. The Buddha spoke of a wheel stuck in mud. Pushing gently, steadily, was better than forcing or giving up. The monk nodded, understanding that effort didn't need to be dramatic, only consistent. Maybe you've looked at a long to-do list and felt frozen, unsure where to begin. A simple truth: small, steady motions free you from the mud. Try this. Pick the easiest task on your list and do only that. Story 17. At the edge of a village, a man came to the Buddha full of sadness. His parents had passed, and he felt guilty for not visiting them more often. The Buddha told him that holding love includes holding imperfection, and that regret softens when met with kindness, not punishment. Tears welled in the man's eyes, but his breath grew calmer, as if grief were no longer choking him. Maybe you've carried old regrets too, things you wish you'd said, time you wish you'd given. A simple truth, compassion heals what regret cannot. Try this, place a hand on your heart and say, I was doing the best I could then. Story 18. A young monk struggled with his meditation practice. Frustrated that the mind wandered endlessly. He felt like a failure and feared disappointing the Buddha. The Buddha compared the mind to a young calf learning to walk unsteady at first, but growing sure over time. The monk smiled shyly, feeling relief wash through him. Maybe your mind wanders too, through work deadlines, family responsibilities, and bills waiting to be paid. A simple truth: wandering is part of learning, not a sign of failure. Try this when the mind drifts. Gently say, come back, and let it return without judgment. Story 19. A soldier visited the Buddha with a tight jaw and restless eyes. He feared the consequences of choices he had made, haunted by moments he wished he could undo. The Buddha told him that a field recovers when tended, no matter how trampled it once was. The soldier exhaled slowly, realizing he could nurture his life forward instead of living in fear of the past. Maybe you've worried over past decisions too: career moves, relationships, money choices. A simple truth: healing begins when fear loosens its hold. Try this. Take one long breath and allow the present moment to be your starting point. Story 20. A householder came to the Buddha, overwhelmed by constant busyness. He juggled work, children, aging parents, and endless responsibilities. His mind felt like a spinning wheel that never stopped. The Buddha held up a simple bowl and placed it down. Even a bowl must rest on the ground, he said softly. The man felt a quiet shift, realizing he had not let himself rest in years. Maybe you've lived like that too, checking emails late at night, tending to everyone but yourself. A simple truth: rest is part of the path, not a break from it. Try this before bed tonight. Sit for 1 minute, doing absolutely nothing, letting your breath fall naturally. Story 21. One evening, the Buddha sat quietly by a lantern's soft glow. A monk approached, worn down by harsh self-judgment. He felt he wasn't disciplined enough, not wise enough, not calm enough. The Buddha pointed to a stone that had been smoothed by years of gentle wind and water. Change, he said, happens slowly, not through force. The monk's shoulders eased as he realized he didn't need to punish himself to grow. Maybe you've spoken to yourself in a voice you'd never use on a friend: sharp, impatient, unforgiving. A simple truth: gentleness shapes you more deeply than pressure. Try this. Whisper one kind sentence to yourself, as if speaking to someone you care about. Story 22. Inches. The early morning hush. A woman came to the Buddha, trembling with shame. She had said hurtful words to her sister during a moment of stress and couldn't forgive herself. The Buddha told her about a cracked pot that still carried water, still served the village, still had purpose. Her eyes softened as she realized she didn't need to be flawless to be worthy. Maybe you've held on to a mistake long after everyone else has let it go. A simple truth: you can be imperfect and still full of goodness. Try this. Place your hand on your belly and breathe once, telling yourself, I can begin again. Story 23. A young monk came to the Buddha, anxious about losing the admiration of others. He felt pressured to impress, perform, and maintain a spotless reputation. The Buddha pointed to a tree that grew naturally toward the sun, without effort, without show. The monk felt a wave of relief. He could let go of the heavy mask he'd been wearing. Maybe you've felt the strain of trying to look put together at work, at home, even with friends. A simple truth: Authenticity is lighter than perfection. Try this. Take a slow breath and release one expectation you place on yourself. Story 24. A man approached the Buddha with trembling hands, terrified of aging. His body was changing, his strength fading, and fear followed him day and night. The Buddha looked at the ripening fruit hanging overhead and explained that everything changes, and there is beauty in every stage. The man's breath steadied, as if he had been given permission to be human. Maybe you've caught your reflection and felt uneasy about time moving forward. A simple truth change is not the enemy. Resistance is. Try this. Smile gently at yourself in a mirror. Just once. Without judgment. Story 25. A merchant sought the Buddha. Anxious because business was failing. He feared disappointing his family and losing everything he'd worked for. The Buddha told him about a farmer who survived harsh seasons by tending what he could and waiting for new rains. The merchant inhaled slowly, feeling hope replace the panic in his chest. Maybe financial uncertainty has kept you awake too, twisting your stomach into knots. A simple truth: seasons shift, even when you cannot see the change. Try this. Write down one thing you can influence this week, and let the rest be for later. Story 26. A monk came to the Buddha, frustrated with others in the monastery. Small habits irritated him: loud footsteps, unwashed bowls, careless words. The Buddha compared the world to a narrow path filled with stones. You can remove some, step around others, and soften the rest by how you walk. The monk breathed easier, realizing he didn't need everything around him to be perfect. Maybe you've been rubbed raw by life's small irritations, noises, delays, chores left undone. A simple truth: peace grows when you loosen your grip on minor frustrations. Try this when irritation rises. Relax your jaw and let one small thing go uncorrected. Story 27. A woman visited the Buddha during a morning of soft breezes. She feared losing the people she loved, especially her aging parents. The thought alone brought tears. The Buddha spoke of a lotus blooming at dawn and closing at dusk, beautiful, temporary, precious because of its impermanence. Her heart softened as she realized she could love more deeply without trying to freeze time. Maybe you've held someone in your life a little too tightly out of fear. A simple truth: love grows stronger when it is not chained. Try this. Think of someone you love and silently wish them ease, just as they are. Story 28. A monk confessed to the Buddha that he felt invisible. He worked hard, followed the rules, helped others, yet received no praise. It made him feel small and unnoticed. The Buddha pointed to a quiet star, visible even in daylight if you knew where to look. Its worth didn't depend on being seen. The monk felt an unexpected warmth in his chest, relief spreading through him. Maybe you've done your best at work or home and felt no recognition. A simple truth: your value isn't measured by applause. Try this. Write one thing you're proud of today, even if no one else sees it. Story 29. One evening, a man came to the Buddha full of restlessness. He wanted to change everything in his life: his job, his home, even his friends. He believed peace lived somewhere far away. The Buddha told him about a traveler who changed roads often but never changed the way he walked. The man paused, realizing peace wasn't waiting in a distant place. Maybe you've imagined that a new job, new city, or new circumstance would solve the heaviness inside. A simple truth: peace grows where you stand when you tend the ground beneath you. Try this list. One thing you can make gentler in your current life. Story 30. A monk approached the Buddha, trembling with fear about the future illness. Old age. Uncertainty. His mind raced faster than he could breathe. The Buddha held up a lamp and explained that the lamp doesn't light the whole path, only the next few steps. The monk exhaled, relieved that he didn't need to know everything ahead. Maybe you've looked too far forward to imagining problems before they come. A simple truth, the next small step is enough. Try this name, one simple thing you'll do tomorrow morning, and let that be your focus for now. 31. The lantern in the orchard. In a quiet valley stood an old orchard where winter lingered longer than usual. A young monk named Soren wandered among the bare trees. Feeling a chill that was not from the wind, he believed something in his heart had gone dormant. One evening, the abbot handed him a lantern with no flame. "Walk until you see light," the abbot whispered. Soren followed a narrow path under a silver moon. The orchard glowed faintly. Though no lanterns burned there, he paused beneath a twisted pear tree and felt the strange warmth of presence. Soft blossoms began falling. Though the season had not yet turned, the lantern in his hands burst into gentle flame without a spark. He realized he had not been searching for light outside himself. The orchard had only been a mirror for his own quiet awakening. Soren stayed there until dawn, breathing with the earth, letting his heart thaw. As morning came, every tree shimmered with buds. He returned with the lit lantern, not to prove anything, only to share warmth. The abbot smiled. When your heart softens, winter ends everywhere. 32. The monk who waited for rain. For 40 days, an old monk named Jiro carried an empty clay bowl into the courtyard. Every morning, he set it beneath the open sky, waiting for rain. Some laughed, saying he was wasting time, but Jiro simply bowed, patient as stone. On the 41st day, clouds gathered but offered nothing. A young novice approached and asked, "Master, why continue?" Jiro lifted the empty bowl. "This teaches me the weight of expectation." He closed his eyes and listened to the wind move across the mountains. "Rain will come when it wishes, not when I demand." The novice sat beside him, placing another bowl next to the first. Hours passed in silence. Then, with no warning, a fine drizzle fell soft, almost shy. The bowls filled slowly, drop by drop. Jiro whispered, "See, it is not waiting that brings rain, but letting go." They drank from the bowls, cool water tasting of sky and surrender. The novice finally understood, patience is not emptiness, it is quiet readiness. 33. The silent bridge. There was a bridge in the mountains that no one crossed after dusk. People said it sang with voices of travelers long gone. One night, a wandering monk named Hanzo approached it. Mist curled around the beams like drifting spirits. Hanzo stepped onto the wooden planks, feeling them breathe beneath him. Halfway across, the wind carried faint whispers. He paused, listening, not afraid, only curious. The voices were not mournful but peaceful, like memories exhaling. They spoke of journeys completed, burdens set down. Hanzo bowed to the unseen travelers. He realized the bridge was not haunted, it was remembering. Every footstep ever taken across it had softened into blessing. On the far side, the mist parted to reveal a bright moon. Hanzo felt lighter, as if the bridge had carried part of his past away. Sometimes, he later told students, places hold us gently when we cross them with open hearts. 34. The cup that refused to break. A potter named Mizue crafted a teacup so delicate that customers hesitated to hold it. One day, during tea with a monk, the cup slipped from Mizue's hands. She gasped, but it landed softly on the tatami without a crack. The monk laughed warmly. Even fragile things know how to fall. Later, Mizue tested it herself, dropping it from different heights. Each time, it refused to break. Confused, she returned to the monk for wisdom. He touched the cup's rim. You made this with great care. What is created with tenderness learns to endure. Mizue realized she had been harsher with herself than with her craft. She treated mistakes as disasters, forgetting her own resilience. That night, she brewed tea again, letting the cup warm her hands. Its sturdiness felt like a quiet teaching. Strength, she finally understood, is not loud or rigid. It is the softness that refuses to shatter. 35. The mountain that breathed in, a secluded monastery. Monks spoke of a mountain that breathed. A young traveler scoffed, but agreed to witness it at dawn. They hiked in silence until they reached a plateau. Before them, the valley exhaled mist like a great lung rising and falling. The traveler stood frozen. It looks alive, he whispered. The abbot nodded. All things breathe, though not all with lungs. They watched clouds drift between ridges, dissolving in the warming light. The traveler felt his own breath deepen, matching the rhythm of the valley. For years, the abbot said, men have tried to conquer mountains, but no one thinks to breathe with them. The traveler bowed, humbled. As the sun rose, he sensed the mountain breathing through him. He walked down changed, no longer trying to overcome life, but to move gently with it. 36. The quiet game children in the village played a game called silence. They gathered in a circle, and whoever spoke first lost. One afternoon, a traveling monk joined them. The children giggled, certain he would win easily. But as the game began, the monk closed his eyes, still as stone. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The children, restless, began to whisper, then laugh, then speak openly. Still, the monk did not move. Finally, the eldest child nudged him. You won, sir. The monk opened his eyes with a smile. Did I? I wasn't competing. I was just listening to what they asked. He pointed to the sky, the wind, the distant river. The world is always speaking. Most people are too busy winning to hear it. The children fell silent, not for the game, but to listen with him. 37. The stone sleeper legend told of a monk who slept on a stone slab for 50 years. A young seeker climbed the temple hill to find him. Sure enough, the monk lay on a flat stone, eyes closed, breath steady. The seeker sat beside him, waiting. Hours passed. Then, without opening his eyes, the monk said, "Why have you come? I want to know how you mastered discomfort." The monk opened one eye. Discomfort is only a story. He invited the seeker to lie on the stone. At first it was hard, cold, unforgiving, but gradually the seeker noticed the warmth of the sun, the firmness supporting him. He stopped resisting. The stone felt almost soft. The old monk whispered, "When you stop arguing with the moment, everything becomes a bed." 38. The last leaf on the banyan tree. A storm swept through the village. stripping the banyan tree bare except for one leaf. Villagers marveled at its stubborn grip. A monk visited daily, watching it flutter but never fall. One dawn, he saw it trembling. Exhausted, he whispered to it, as if to a friend, "You may let go." A gentle breeze nudged the leaf loose. It spiraled down gracefully. Landing in his palm, he bowed deeply, honoring its endurance. The villagers asked why the leaf clung so long. Even leaves finish their work in their own time. He said, he kept the leaf on his altar, not as a symbol of stubbornness, but of the beauty of knowing exactly when to release. 39. The River's Apology. A river known for its violent floods carved deep scars through the valley. Villagers feared it, cursed it, avoided its banks. One year, a monk built a small hut near the water. People warned him, but he only smiled. He sat beside the river daily, listening to its roar. Over time, the water grew calmer, its color clearing. One morning, the monk swore he heard it speaking, not in words, but in tone and apology. "I take what I cannot hold," the river seemed to say. The monk replied softly, "Then learn to carry gently." Seasons passed, and the floods grew rare. When villagers asked what he had done, he shrugged, "I forgave it. Sometimes that's all a river needs." 40. The Bowl of Moonlight. A monk carried an empty bowl up the mountain each night. He held it beneath the full moon as if collecting something precious. Other monks teased him, but he remained serene. One evening, a curious novice followed him. The monk lifted the bowl, and moonlight pooled inside it. "See," he whispered. The novice frowned. "But you can't keep it." The monk smiled. Not everything held must stay. They sat, watching the light shimmer in the curved porcelain. The novice felt a strange peace settling into his bones. The monk lowered the bowl, now empty again. "Beauty is a visitor," he said. "Let it come and go without grasping." They walked back in silence, the night gentler than before. 41. The Traveler Who Followed a Single Star. A weary traveler walked through endless desert nights, following a single bright star. He believed it was guiding him to a hidden monastery. Each evening, he bowed to the star before taking another step forward. But nights grew colder, and doubts grew heavier. One stormy dusk, clouds swallowed the sky, and the star vanished. The traveler sat in the sand, lost, trembling. At dawn, he saw a monk approaching, walking calmly across the dunes. "I lost my guiding star," the traveler whispered. The monk smiled gently. "When the sky disappears, look at your feet." He pointed to a faint line in the sand, the traveler's own footprints from earlier, even without stars. "The path remembers you." The traveler followed the line back to steady ground. The star reappeared that night, but he no longer depended on it. He had found a deeper compass, quiet faith in each next step. 42. The Garden of Unfinished Songs. In a distant monastery lived a monk who composed songs but never completed them. Visitors praised the beauty of his melodies, yet wondered why they all stopped halfway. One day, a young musician asked him for guidance. The monk led him to a hidden garden where wind chimes hung from every branch. Their tones flickered, rising and falling, never forming a full tune. The musician frowned. "These songs never finish." The monk nodded. Just like the wind, they stood listening as breeze after breeze shaped new fragments. No song stays. The monk said, "Music is a moment, not a monument." The musician finally understood that beauty doesn't always need an ending. He bowed deeply, feeling the unfinished melodies open his heart. He left the garden with a strange peace, carrying songs still blooming inside. 43. The Old Man and the Bamboo Raft. At the riverbank, an old man built a bamboo raft each spring. Every autumn he dismantled it and let the river carry the pieces away. A novice monk asked him why he repeated this cycle. The old man smiled. "The river is never the same. Why should the raft be?" They floated downstream together, the raft creaking softly beneath them. Water glimmered like liquid silver in the sun. The novice asked, "What if the raft breaks? Then we swim." The old man said, "Halfway through the journey." One beam snapped. The novice panicked. But the old man laughed. "See, change is the river's way of teaching us to loosen our grip." They reached the shore wet but unharmed. The old man began gathering new bamboo immediately. The novice joined him, no longer fearing the river, but curious about the next raft life would ask him to build. 44. The tea mistress of the northern wind, far in the north, lived a tea mistress who brewed warmth in the coldest seasons. Travelers visited her mountain hut, seeking comfort. She poured tea silently, her movements smooth as drifting snow. One winter, a monk asked her why her tea tasted like quiet joy. She answered without words, handing him an empty cup. He waited, confused. Then she filled the cup only halfway. The monk sipped, feeling calm bloom inside him. "Why only half?" he asked. She pointed to the steam rising gently. "The empty space is also tea." He held the cup longer, noticing the warmth in the air around it. He realized peace does not come from fullness, but from room left for breath, stillness, and wonder. 45. The bridge built without nails. In a remote valley, monks constructed a bridge entirely without nails. Its wooden beams curved gracefully like folded wings. People doubted it would survive a single winter. Yet each year it stood strong, unmoved by storms. A young builder sought the monk's secret. The abbot led him beneath the bridge, showing the interlocking joints. "Every piece depends on the others," he said. "No one beam carries the whole burden." The builder touched the wood, feeling its subtle warmth. He realized the bridge did not resist pressure, it embraced it. Its strength came from harmony, not force. When he returned to his village, he built homes the same way, joined by trust, flexible in storms. People said his buildings felt alive. He always replied, "They breathe together." 46. The fox that bowed to the moon. A monk walking through the forest one night saw a fox standing in a clearing. Its fur shimmered under the moonlight. The fox bowed its head, as if in reverence. The monk stood still, watching. The fox lifted its gaze, tail swaying gently. It bowed again, slow and graceful. The monk wondered whom it was greeting. Then he looked at the moon round, luminous, silent. The fox turned to him, blinking with calm awareness. The monk bowed too, feeling unexpectedly honored. For a moment, animal, man, and moon shared one breath. The fox trotted away, leaving the monk smiling. Walking back to the temple, he whispered, "Even wild hearts know how to honor beauty when it rises." 47. The story written on water. A wandering poet carried a brush and a bowl of water. He visited village squares and wrote poems on stone paths. Within minutes, the sun erased them. Children asked why he bothered. He smiled. Words don't need to stay to matter. One afternoon, a monk watched him draw a long, flowing character. Before it disappeared, the monk felt something shift inside him. A soft opening he couldn't name. He asked the poet what the word meant. It means release. The monk bowed, realizing the impermanence was the teaching. As the last drop evaporated, the path looked brighter. The poet walked on, leaving no trace except a lingering peace. 48. The night the stars fell twice. Villagers remembered a night when stars fell twice. The first time, meteors streaked across the sky in blazing arcs. Everyone gasped in wonder. But the real miracle happened later. After the villagers returned indoors, a monk stayed outside. The sky grew darker, deeper. Then, tiny glimmers began falling, fireflies rising from the grass. They drifted upward like a second rain of stars. The monk felt tears warm his cheeks. He whispered, "The heavens fall, but so does the earth." Both lights were equally breathtaking. He realized beauty comes from above and below, distant and near. Since then, villagers say stars fall twice whenever the heart is open. 49. The monk who returned his name. An old monk visited the village scribe and requested his name be erased from all records. The scribe protested. "Without a name, how will people remember you?" The monk replied softly. "If memory depends on ink, it is not real." He left the scribe bewildered. Back at the monastery, he tended the gardens quietly, season after season. He helped villagers without recognition. Children called him Grandfather Monk, though no one knew his true name. When he passed peacefully one spring morning, the villagers gathered. They shared stories, kindnesses, lessons, laughter. Someone asked again, "What was his name?" A child answered, "He was the one who made us feel safe." And in that moment, everyone realized he had become unforgettable. 50. The candle that chose the dawn. In a mountain shrine, a single candle had burned for years. Monks kept it lit as a symbol of continuity. One night, a young monk noticed the flame flickering low. He reached for a new candle, but the abbot stopped him. "Let it choose its time." They sat quietly as the candle's light softened. The flame wavered, then steadied, then dimmed again. Slowly, the sky outside began to pale with morning light. Just as the first sunbeam entered the room, the candle flame bowed and went out. The abbot whispered, "Even flames know when to yield to the greater light." The young monk felt a gentle truth settle in his heart. Every ending has perfect timing when met with peace. 51. The lantern maker's quiet evening. An old lantern maker worked in a tiny workshop beside a slow river. He shaped thin strips of bamboo with hands that trembled gently. One evening, a young monk visited him, looking worried and restless. The monk said his responsibilities felt heavier each day. The old man lit a lantern and placed it between them. The flame danced softly, glowing through the thin paper. "See how the frame holds the light without strain," the old man whispered. "The bamboo bends but does not break." The monk watched the warm glow ease his breath. He realized he had been trying to hold everything with stiff strength. The lantern seemed to teach him to carry life with gentleness instead. He bowed deeply before returning to the monastery. The old man kept working, smiling at the calm settling in the room. Outside, the river shimmered as though it, too, breathed easier. 52. The pilgrim who walked backward. A pilgrim was seen walking backward on a mountain path. Travelers stopped, confused, asking why he moved so strangely. He explained he was retracing steps from a day filled with regret. He hoped walking backward would undo his mistakes. A monk resting nearby invited him to sit. They watched clouds drift slowly across the sky. "You can't reverse the clouds," the monk said gently, "but you can choose the direction you walk from here." The pilgrim sighed, feeling the tightness in his chest loosen. He turned around, facing the valley ahead. For the first time that day, he breathed with steadiness. He thanked the monk and began walking forward again. Each step felt lighter, as though the past no longer tugged so hard. Far below, the valley welcomed him with open space. 53. The fisherman and the empty hook. A fisherman sat all morning without catching a single fish. He grew frustrated, muttering under his breath. A monk passing by asked if he might sit with him. The fisherman nodded reluctantly. They watched the gentle ripples spreading across the lake. "You're gripping the rod very tightly," the monk observed. The fisherman loosened his hands, surprised by their soreness. The monk added, "Sometimes the lake gives, sometimes it doesn't." The wind carried a cool whisper across the water. The fisherman felt his irritation soften, even without a catch. The moment grew peaceful. He looked at the monk and said, "Maybe today the lake is teaching patience." The monk smiled and rose to continue his walk. The fisherman stayed a while longer, grateful for the quiet lesson. 54. The two bells that rang differently in a hillside monastery. Two bronze bells hung side by side. One rang clearly, bright as morning sunlight. The other sounded dull and uneven. A young monk asked the abbot why they kept the cracked bell. The abbot struck it gently, letting its imperfect sound drift into the valley. "Not every voice is meant to be polished," he murmured. The uneven tone carried a strange, tender beauty. The young monk felt a warmth spread through his chest. He realized he had been judging himself harshly for his own flaws. He bowed to the bell, accepting its quiet teaching. The wind passed through the bells again, blending their tones. Together, they made a harmony richer than either alone. The monk walked away feeling softer toward himself. 55. The farmer who stored clouds. A farmer kept glass jars lined along a window. Children believed he was storing clouds. He simply smiled when asked about them. One day, a traveling monk visited during a long drought. The farmer held up the jars, each filled with ordinary air. "Why keep empty jars?" the monk asked. "To remind me," the farmer said, "that everything changes." He pointed to the sky where clouds had once drifted freely. Even droughts end. The monk felt a sense of ease he hadn't felt in weeks. The jars were empty, yet full of quiet hope. That evening, a small rain began. The farmer placed one jar outside, letting droplets tap against its surface. The monk watched, smiling, grateful for simple reminders of renewal. 56. The whisper at the tree's roots. A huge banyan tree stood at the center of a village. People said it whispered to those who listened long enough. One restless merchant sat beneath it, weighed down by work and worry. He pressed his ear to the rough bark, hearing only faint rustles. A monk approached and sat beside him without speaking. They listened together to the subtle sounds of leaves and wind. The monk finally murmured, "The tree is reminding you to slow down." The merchant exhaled deeply, the first calm breath of his day. He realized he had been racing through life without pause. The banyan offered no solutions, only stillness. Yet that stillness felt like medicine. The merchant rose, feeling lighter, bowing to both tree and monk. Leaves shimmered softly, as though acknowledging his change. 57. The rice bowl with a crack. A novice monk dropped a rice bowl, leaving a thin crack along its side. He felt ashamed and hid it behind the others. The abbot discovered it and placed it right at the front. The novice blushed with embarrassment. The abbot poured rice into the bowl anyway. Sunlight filtered through a window, striking the crack and creating a small golden line. "See how the light enters," the abbot said. The novice stared, breath catching softly. The bowl suddenly looked beautiful in its imperfection. He realized the crack didn't ruin it, it revealed something new. From that day on, he cared for the bowl with gentle pride. Visitors often commented on the bowl's quiet charm. The novice learned to hold his own flaws with the same grace. 58. The monks who shared an umbrella. 2 monks traveled during a sudden summer downpour. They had only one umbrella, barely large enough for one person. Instead of arguing, they held it between them and walked slowly. Rain soaked their sleeves and dripped from their sandals. Yet they laughed quietly, finding warmth in their shared discomfort. A villager watched them and asked why they didn't hurry. One monk replied, "The rain is less heavy when shared." The villager pondered their words long after they passed. Meanwhile, the monks enjoyed the rhythm of the falling rain. When they reached shelter, neither remembered the inconvenience. They only remembered the companionship. Sometimes, the smallest kindness held the whole journey together. The rain continued gently, almost like a blessing. 59. The painter who used the sky. A painter set up his canvas each morning at the edge of a cliff. Monks often saw him staring at the sky for long stretches, yet his canvas remained mostly empty. One curious monk asked why he rarely painted. The painter said, "The sky paints faster than I can." Clouds drifted, colors shifted, shadows danced. "Every moment is a new masterpiece," he whispered. The monk watched the sky change from pale blue to soft gold. Something inside him settled. He realized he had been trying to control each detail of his life. But here, nothing could be held, only appreciated. The painter smiled as the monk bowed in gratitude. The sky offered another gentle display, endlessly giving. 60. The sparrow and the silent master. A tiny sparrow built a nest on a quiet master's window ledge. It chirped loudly every dawn, waking him before the morning bell. Disciples expected the master to shoo it away. Instead, he opened the window each morning and listened. The sparrow hopped closer, unafraid. One disciple asked why he tolerated the noise. The master said, "It reminds me that the world wakes before I do." They watched the sparrow gather twigs with diligent effort. Its small wings fluttered with determination. The disciple felt something soften in his chest. He had been irritated by small things lately. The sparrow's simple persistence calmed him. He bowed to the master, then to the bird. Morning felt gentler from then on. 61. The weaver and the tangled thread. A weary weaver sat outside her home at dusk, staring at a knot in her thread. She had tried all afternoon to loosen it, growing more frustrated each hour. A monk stopped as he passed by her porch. He watched her struggle for a quiet moment. Then he knelt beside her and gently set the spool in her hands. "Your breath is tighter than the knot," he said softly. She exhaled, surprised at how tense she'd become. Slowly, her fingers relaxed. The knot loosened almost on its own. A calm warmth spread through her chest. She realized she had been pulling too hard at everything in her life lately. Deadlines, housework, bills all tugged at her mind the same way. But here, in the fading light, something inside her settled. She thanked the monk, feeling a little more in control by trying less. 62. The tired father at the riverside. A father sat beside a quiet river, face in his hands. His children had fought all morning, and he felt worn thin. A visiting monk sat nearby, skipping small stones across the surface. The father sighed, saying he wished the river could wash his worries away. The monk handed him a smooth pebble. "Throw this." "Not your peace," he murmured. The father tossed the pebble, watching ripples widen gently. Each ring softened something inside him. The monk added, "Everything moves, even the hard moments." The father breathed easier, imagining his stress traveling outward like those ripples. For the first time that day, he felt steady. He returned home later with a calmer heart. His children noticed the difference before he even spoke. 63. The woman with too many bags. A woman walked toward a monastery carrying several heavy bags. She refused help from anyone, insisting she could manage alone. Halfway up the hill, she sat down in frustration, sweating and overwhelmed. A monk approached and placed one of her bags beside him. He didn't ask permission, he simply lightened her load. She looked at him, surprised but relieved. "For some reason, I thought I had to carry everything," she whispered. The monk said, "Most people do, until they rest for a moment." They walked together, sharing the weight. Her breath grew smoother, her shoulders lower. At the gate, she felt strangely grateful for the simplicity of help. She realized she had been doing the same in life, holding too tightly to all her responsibilities. Letting someone walk beside her made everything feel less impossible. 64. The monk who cleaned the floor twice. A novice monk cleaned the meditation hall each morning. One day, he finished early but felt uneasy, unsure if the room was clean enough. He wiped the floor again, then again, chasing perfection. An elder monk watched from the doorway. He asked gently, "Is the room dirty? Or is your mind restless?" The novice froze. Realizing he wasn't cleaning the floor, he was cleaning away his own anxiety. The elder knelt and washed a single tile slowly, breathing peacefully. The novice followed, matching the calm rhythm. Soon he felt a soft ease spreading through him. When they finished, the hall felt warm and welcoming. Not perfect. The novice bowed, grateful to understand that calm doesn't come from polishing endlessly. Sometimes it comes from stopping. 65. The guest who wanted answers. A traveling merchant visited the monastery seeking advice. He had too many decisions to make about money, work, and family. His mind buzzed with questions he couldn't quiet. A monk offered him tea. The merchant drank quickly, eager for solutions. The monk refilled the cup, but the merchant kept drinking without pausing. Finally, the monk said, "You drink tea the way you make choices without space." The merchant blinked, heat rising in his cheeks. He slowed his next sip. For the first time all day, he noticed its warmth, its scent, its softness. His nerves eased. He realized answers might come more clearly when he wasn't rushing. He set the cup down gently and thanked the monk with a calmer smile. 66. The broken gate. A small gate at the monastery entrance had been stuck for weeks. Visitors pushed and pulled it roughly, frustrated each time. One morning, a monk tapped the hinge lightly with a small stone. The gate opened effortlessly. A villager, watching from the road, asked how he knew what to do. The monk replied, "Not everything needs force. Some things need noticing." The villager thought about his own family tensions at home. He had been pushing hard for change, and nothing moved. He felt something loosen inside him. The monk walked away, leaving the gate swinging freely in the breeze. The villager touched the hinge and smiled, realizing calm attention might shift what anger couldn't. He went home with a quieter heart. 67. The singer who lost her voice. A singer arrived at the monastery unable to perform. Her voice cracked under the pressure of perfection. She told a monk she feared losing her career. The monk invited her to sit by a pond. Frogs croaked. Birds chirped. Wind rustled the reeds. None of them tried to sound perfect. He said softly. The singer closed her eyes. Listening, something in her chest softened. She hummed gently. Not for an audience, just for herself. Her voice felt warm again. Small but true. She realized she had forgotten the simple joy of sound. When she left, she carried a steadier breath and a lighter heart. Her first song afterward was imperfect and beautiful. 68. The trader and the quiet night. A trader arrived after dark. Exhausted from travel and bargaining, he complained that his mind wouldn't stop spinning with numbers and deals. A monk led him to the courtyard, where the night sky stretched wide. "Sit," the monk said, pointing upward. The trader stared at the stars, messy and countless. Nothing needed sorting, organizing, or calculating. Slowly his breath deepened. He whispered, "Everything feels smaller from here." The monk nodded, letting the silence do the teaching. The trader's shoulders dropped, his jaw unclenched. He felt a rare stillness spreading through him. For the first time in weeks, he wasn't chasing anything. He lay down on a bench and slept under the stars, peaceful as a child. 69. The farmer who yelled at the rain. A farmer shouted angrily at the sky during a sudden storm. His crops had just been planted, and he feared the rain would wash them away. A monk passing by stood beside him in the downpour. "Yelling won't stop the rain," the monk said gently. The farmer's anger crumbled into tired frustration. They stood quietly together as the rain softened into a drizzle. "Storms come, whether we welcome them or not," the monk murmured. The farmer breathed slowly, noticing the fresh smell of wet earth. He realized the rain might help more than harm. The monk walked on, leaving the farmer calmer. The next morning, the crops stood firm, nourished by the night's storm. The farmer smiled, grateful he hadn't carried yesterday's anger into the new day. 70. The boy who wanted to be enlightened by morning. A young boy arrived at the monastery, insisting he wanted enlightenment immediately. He clenched his fists, determined to become wise overnight. A monk invited him to sweep leaves in the courtyard. The boy swept quickly, expecting something magical to happen. The monk watched quietly. The wind blew more leaves across the path. The boy groaned in frustration. The monk finally said, "The wind doesn't hurry, yet it moves everything." The boy paused, letting the words sink in. His breath slowed. His grip softened. He swept again, this time noticing the sound of the broom, the cool air, the simple movement. A calm warmth spread through him. He realized that wisdom might grow the way mornings do, slowly, naturally. He smiled at the monk, feeling lighter than when he arrived. 71. The monk who watched falling leaves. A young monk sat beneath a maple tree as autumn wind stirred the branches. He noticed every leaf trembling before it fell. His mind raced with unfinished tasks and questions about the future. An elder monk joined him, settling quietly at his side. "Do you see how the leaves let go?" the elder whispered. The young monk nodded, but only half-heartedly. The elder held out his hand. A single red leaf drifted onto his palm. "It doesn't resist," he said. "It doesn't cling." The young monk let out a slow breath, feeling tension soften in his shoulders. He noticed his own thoughts could fall like leaves if he allowed them. The elder stayed, silent, until the sun lowered behind distant hills. The young monk finally smiled, feeling the space between breaths. Even the trees seemed to exhale with him. He realized letting go did not mean giving up, just opening to the flow of life. The leaves continued to drift, and he watched, peaceful and still. 72. The potter and the broken vase. A potter accidentally dropped a newly finished vase, shattering it into pieces. He sank to his knees, despair in his eyes. A monk passing by saw the fragments on the floor. He knelt and touched a shard gently. "Even broken, it has beauty," the monk said softly. The potter frowned, unsure how to see what the monk meant. Together, they picked up pieces and arranged them in the sunlight. The cracks caught the light and glimmered like veins of gold. The potter realized he had been judging himself as harshly as the vase. He laughed quietly, feeling the tension leave his chest. The monk nodded, letting the lesson settle in silence. Sometimes, imperfection reveals what perfection cannot. The potter cleaned the floor slowly, savoring the calm after his frustration. He kept the fragments on his workbench as a quiet reminder. Each time he glanced at them, he felt lighter and more patient. 73. The monks and the midnight bell. Two monks woke at midnight to hear the distant bell from another monastery. One felt annoyed. Sleep had been precious. The other closed his eyes and listened, letting the sound wash over him. The first monk frowned, muttering about wasted time. The second whispered, "Listen, it tells a story you might not hear in daylight." Curious despite himself, the first monk sat quietly. The bell resonated deep in the valley, echoing like gentle waves. Tension left his shoulders, and his chest expanded. He realized he had been measuring life by convenience rather than presence. The two monks stayed together in silence, the bell moving them without effort. By the time it faded, the first monk felt unexpectedly grateful. He understood that some gifts arrive unbidden, and only patience opens the heart. They returned to their mats, breathing soft and calm. Even the night seemed warmer after the bell's echo. 74. The farmer and the sleeping river. A farmer walked along the river every morning, worried about flooding and dry spells. One day he noticed the water flowing slower than usual. He stomped his foot, demanding answers from the river itself. A monk appeared and asked him to sit on the bank. The farmer reluctantly complied, arms crossed and jaw tight. The monk placed a hand on the river's edge and closed his eyes. The farmer followed awkwardly, noticing how stillness made the water ripple gently. Even a river rests. The monk said softly. The farmer blinked, seeing the sunlight dance on tiny waves. He felt his tension ease, his shoulders dropping. He realized he had been trying to control forces far larger than himself. The river would flow, whether he worried or not. He returned home with a lighter step and calmer thoughts. From then on, he visited the river with curiosity rather than frustration. 75. The candle in the fog. A candle flickered in the monastery hallway on a foggy evening. A novice monk watched, worried it might go out. He ran back and forth, shielding it with his hands. The abbot appeared, observing silently. "Why do you chase the flame?" he asked gently. The novice hesitated, unsure. The abbot knelt, letting his own hands hover over the candle without touching it. "It burns steadily when we allow it space," he said. The novice exhaled, realizing his worry was what caused the flicker. He stopped moving, simply observing. The candle glowed brighter in the stillness. The abbot smiled, letting him notice the rhythm of calm in the tiny flame. The novice felt the tension in his chest dissolve. Sometimes, effort is less about action and more about presence. He returned to his room, carrying the gentle steadiness of the flame in his heart. 76. The sparrow and the lotus pond. A monk visited a lotus pond where a sparrow had built its nest. The bird chirped insistently whenever anyone approached. Other monks tried to shoo it away. The visiting monk simply sat quietly on the edge. The sparrow paused, eyeing him, then continued its morning song. He noticed the small movements of the water and the sunlight on petals. The sparrow became part of the scene, and the scene became part of him. He understood that life moves with or without resistance. The other monks looked on, amazed at his patience. He whispered, "Even the smallest creatures teach attention and grace." The pond seemed to shimmer more brightly under his calm gaze. The sparrow hopped closer, unafraid. The monk smiled softly, letting the morning unfold naturally. By the time he left, the pond and bird felt like a shared secret of peace. 77. The bridge that waited. A bridge stood over a river, broken by storms, repaired repeatedly. A young monk wondered why the elders did not rebuild it faster. He asked one abbot. Frustrated with delay, the abbot led him to the bank, pointing to the water below. "The river must settle first," he said softly. The monk frowned. He watched debris float gently downstream, leaves and small branches moving with the current. "The bridge waits for its own moment," the abbot added. The young monk realized that rushing only added strain. He knelt by the water, feeling the rhythm of patience settle into him. He began to understand that timing matters as much as effort. Weeks later, the bridge was repaired with ease. Nothing had forced it, only quiet waiting. He carried that lesson with him in all small tasks afterward. 78. The teacup with no handle. A novice spilled tea daily because his cup had no handle. He grew frustrated, imagining the mishaps were signs of failure. An elder monk handed him a cloth instead of a new cup. "Hold it like this," he said softly. The novice tried again, focusing on the warmth in his hands rather than the spill. He felt the tea steady in his palms. "I can do this," he whispered, smiling at his own clumsiness. The elder nodded, allowing him space to learn. Mistakes became lessons rather than failures. Soon, The novice handled every cup with care and awareness. He realized the cup had not changed. He had. Life often offers the same challenges repeatedly. The key is not to avoid them, but to approach differently each time. The tea tasted sweeter when held with calm attention. 79. The night. The lanterns sang during a festival. Monks carried hundreds of lanterns to the river. A young monk felt overwhelmed by the noise and movement. He tried to straighten every lantern, worried they would fall. An elder stopped him. Smiling gently, "Let them float." The elder whispered. The lanterns drifted, lights reflecting in the water like stars scattered across the river. The young monk exhaled, tension leaving his shoulders. He noticed the soft hum of voices, water, and gentle wind. The scene reminded him that not everything needed perfect control. He floated alongside the lanterns, quietly observing. The light seemed to dance with his own breathing. For the first time, he allowed beauty without managing it. He returned to the monastery with a lighter heart, carrying peace from the river. 80. The carpenter who listened. A carpenter worked tirelessly, worrying if his doors and tables were perfect. A monk visited and asked him to pause for a moment. The carpenter laughed nervously but agreed. They stood together in the quiet workshop. "Listen," the monk said softly, the sound of wood settling, the faint wind in the cracks, and distant birds became a gentle chorus. The carpenter realized he had been so focused on results that he never noticed the rhythm of creation. His chest loosened, shoulders dropped. He picked up his tools again. But this time, his hands were lighter. Each cut, each joint felt slower and more deliberate. He noticed the faint warmth of the sun on the boards. The monk smiled, letting silence speak. The carpenter understood that presence matters more than perfection. He worked quietly, savoring the sound of the workshop like music. And now, as the final whispers of these stories settle, let your body sink deeper into the mattress, soft and warm, as if the day itself is folding around you. The river we followed in our minds has slowed to a quiet current. Its ripples are faint now, soft reflections of moonlight on still water. Each breath you take moves like that river, carrying away fragments of thought, tiny tensions, the small burdens you've been carrying all day. Remember the candle that burned gently, flickering but never frantic. Its glow has softened now, just like your shoulders, just like your hands. As the warmth spreads quietly through your chest, imagine the moon above, suspended in the wide sky, silent, patient, timeless. It has watched over each story tonight, each turning leaf, each sparrow in the lotus pond, each ripple in the river, and it watches over you now. Some of you came carrying a heavy bag of worry. Some of you carried shadows of work, or the quiet ache of family obligations, or a mind that spins and spins through the night. Some of you simply came for rest. And here, in this space, you can let all of it soften. Feel the cool hush of night as it presses softly against your skin. Hear it in the small pause between breaths, the wind, the water, the distant hum of unseen life. They are the lullabies of the universe, reminding you that nothing is permanent. Nothing needs to be held so tightly. You might notice your eyelids growing heavier, like clouds drawing toward evening. Slowly, unhurriedly, gently covering the sky. Let the muscles of your jaw unclench. Let your hands relax, loose as petals drifting. Let your shoulders drop, melting into the soft support beneath you. Imagine the last story's lantern floating away on still water, its glow mingling with the reflections of stars. It drifts quietly, carrying with it all that you no longer need to hold. No thought, no regret, no effort to fix or plan, just presence, just light, just this moment. The ocean waits beyond the horizon, vast and untroubled. Its waves lap softly, rhythmically, like your own heartbeat, steady, unforced, as if the world itself is breathing with you. Each exhale releases more weight. Each inhale invites more space. Each pause between is infinite. There is a gentle clarity here, a tender emptiness that feels like returning home. The moonlight on the river, the candle in the dark, the sparrow in the garden, they are all parts of the same quiet world. And you are a part of it too. Softly, fully, completely. No one is asking you to be anywhere else. No one is asking you to do anything more. The stories have carried their whispers, and now the stillness carries you. You may feel it in your chest, or in the weight of your legs, or simply in the hush between your breaths. And if your mind drifts into the questions of tomorrow, or the echoes of the day, return gently to the sensation of here, to the warmth of the bed, to the soft rhythm of your breathing. It is enough to be here, enough to rest, enough to let go. The river has flowed into the night. The candle has burned its last full glow. The moon has traveled across the sky and rests again in stillness. And so can you. Your body, your mind, your heart, all held softly by the moment, by the quiet world, by this endless, gentle night. Sleep now. Let the stories, the rivers, the lanterns, the moonlight carry you. Let yourself dissolve into this peace. The world waits with patient stillness, and you are safe, and you are weightless. Exhale and rest.